My beloved child, in this very moment, as the world around you appears calm and ordinary, an invisible storm is slowly gathering, and every heartbeat you feel is drawing you closer to a revelation that will alter the way you see trust, loyalty, and the people who silently move in the shadows of his life. You may think you already know who stands beside him, who smiles for him, who speaks softly in his presence, but beneath that facade lies a truth so unexpected that it feels like the ground itself is preparing to shift beneath your feet. Tonight, I want you to listen with your soul, because every word ahead carries a subtle echo of footsteps. Footsteps of someone who no longer wants to remain seen, someone who is slowly pulling away, someone who has made a decision so shocking that when the name comes to light, it will not just surprise you, it will leave you breathless. And as I speak, imagine the silence of a dimly lit room, the soft hum of a distant memory, and the realization that something big, something life-altering, is about to unfold right before your inner eyes. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. Conversations flowing, smiles exchanged, promises whispered in quiet corners where only their shadows could listen. Yet silence has a language of its own, and lately that silence has grown louder, heavier, more haunting. There is a presence in his life, a person who once walked proudly by his side, who now feels like a ghost lingering at the edge of every moment. This person watches from afar, carrying a storm within, wrestling with emotions they can no longer control. They feel unseen, unheard, misunderstood, and slowly, day by day, a thought has begun to take root in their heart, the thought of disappearing, of slipping away without a trace, of erasing themselves from his world as if they were never a chapter in his story at all. And while the world remains unaware, while others assume everything is fine, the truth burns quietly inside them, a truth that trembles like a secret letter never delivered, a truth waiting for the right moment to break free. There were signs, subtle at first, a distant expression in their eyes, conversations cut short, messages typed and deleted, pauses long enough to feel like endless miles. They began to pull away not with anger, but with exhaustion from battles never spoken, feelings never acknowledged, sacrifices never seen. They had hoped he would notice, hoped he would ask, hoped he would reach for them before it was too late. But sometimes, the loudest cries are silent, and sometimes the deepest wounds never leave scars on the surface. And so, in their heart, a decision began to form, fragile yet firm, a decision to vanish quietly, to fade from his life like a final page gently torn from a book. Yet what makes this revelation powerful is not just their choice to disappear, but who this person truly is. Because when the name is revealed, it will not be a stranger, not an outsider, not someone distant. It will be someone so close, so deeply woven into his life, that every memory will suddenly feel different, every moment will gain a new weight, and every emotion will surge with an intensity beyond words. Imagine the night when they finally stand alone under the quiet sky, feeling the weight of everything they never said pressing against their chest. They think of the moments they stayed when they should have left, the tears they swallowed so no one would see, the dreams they buried so he could live his own. They were not weak, they were strong, stronger than anyone ever realized, but strength has limits, and their heart has carried too much for far too long. They whisper to themselves, not in anger but in surrender, that disappearing may be the only way to protect their own soul. And as they prepare to step away, they leave behind not hatred, but a silence filled with unspoken love, regret, and a final flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, one day he will understand what he lost. This is not just a departure, it is a quiet heartbreak, a silent farewell that echoes louder than any goodbye ever spoken. And now, as the truth inches closer to the surface, as the air thickens with anticipation, you can almost feel the name pressing against the edge of revelation, waiting to break free. Because this person, the one who wants to disappear from his life, is not a distant figure, not a passing presence, but the one he least expected to lose, the one whose loyalty he took for granted, the one whose love stood unwavering even when their own heart trembled. When this name comes forward, it will shake the foundation of his world, and every decision, every word, every moment will suddenly appear in a new light. So stay with this moment, feel the pulse of suspense running through every breath, and prepare your heart, because the truth is approaching like a rising tide, and the revelation of this name will not just shock you, it will change everything. In this unfolding silence, a new truth begins to tremble at the edge of revelation, as if the universe itself is holding its breath while the story deepens and the emotions hidden beneath every memory rise to the surface with greater force than before. The atmosphere around him has shifted, conversations feel heavier, words carry deeper shadows, and every glance exchanged holds a question that no one dares to voice aloud. This person who wants to disappear is no longer just stepping back. They are slowly detaching from every thread that once tied them to his world. Their heart is filled with an ache that has grown over time, an ache born not from anger, but from being unseen in moments when they deserve to be cherished the most. And now, in this chapter, the suspense thickens, the emotional pull deepens, and the truth draws nearer like a whisper drifting closer to the ear, preparing to shake the ground beneath every assumption made so far. There are moments they replay in their mind, the quiet evenings where they stood by him without being acknowledged, the sacrifices they made in silence, the loyalty they offered even when their own soul trembled. They were the one who stayed when others walked away, the one who believed in him when doubt surrounded his path, the one who carried his burdens without letting him see the weight she bore. But devotion without appreciation becomes a wound, and love without recognition becomes a quiet heartbreak. The more they gave, the more invisible they felt, until their heart began to retreat into itself like a fading echo inside a vast and lonely room. They did not want to vanish, they were slowly pushed toward that decision by the feeling of being overlooked, misunderstood, and taken for granted in moments where they longed to be held close instead of left standing in the distance. Now, the air around their connection feels fragile, like a glass wall separating two souls who once walked together but now stand apart, watching each other from opposite sides of an unspoken divide. He senses something slipping away, yet he cannot grasp what it is, as if he is reaching out to hold on to smoke dissolving through his fingers. That person, the one preparing to disappear, moves quietly through his life like the last fading light before nightfall, still present, yet slowly dimming. Every word they speak feels layered with hidden meaning, every silence feels louder than before, and every step forward feels like a step closer to goodbye. The suspense grows stronger here, because you can feel that the truth is no longer distant, it is approaching with a force that will rewrite everything he thought he understood about loyalty, love, and the one he believed would always remain. In the depths of their heart, an emotional storm swirls. Not chaotic, but deeply controlled, filled with restraint and strength. They remember how they protected him from judgments, stood for him when others doubted him, and shielded his name when whispers rose around them. Yet in return, their own feelings were left unanswered, their own worth unacknowledged. They are not leaving because they stopped caring, they are stepping away because their soul deserves peace after giving endlessly without receiving the warmth they silently wished for. As they prepare to vanish from his world, they do not carry bitterness, they carry a fragile tenderness, a quiet sorrow, and an unspoken truth that still hopes he might realize who truly stood beside him all along. And as this truth draws nearer, the suspense intensifies, because the name of this person is not distant, not unfamiliar, not someone outside his life. It is someone central, someone deeply connected, someone whose presence he believed was permanent. The realization of who it is will strike like lightning across his past, illuminating every overlooked moment, every ignored emotion, every silent sacrifice. The story is now shifting toward that revelation, and when the name finally emerges from the shadows, it will not just shock you, it will reveal how deeply he misjudged the heart that now prepares to disappear forever. Like the hush before a storm that no one sees coming, the atmosphere now grows thicker with unspoken emotions, as if every memory between them is replaying itself in slow motion, revealing hidden layers that were once overlooked but now burn with new meaning. The path ahead feels heavier, more intense, and every heartbeat in this story echoes with an urgency that refuses to fade. This person who wants to disappear has reached a point where silence no longer protects them. Instead, it weighs upon their soul like a burden they can no longer carry. Their presence in his life was once steady and unwavering, but now it feels like a fading shadow retreating into the distance, leaving behind traces of hurt, unspoken loyalty, and unanswered longing. And as we step into this part of the story, you can sense that the revelation of their identity is drawing closer, hovering just beyond the edge of realization, waiting to shatter the illusion he has lived in for far too long. They remember the countless times they stood quietly in the background while others took credit for emotions they silently nurtured, moments where their love went unnoticed while they watched him invest his attention elsewhere. They were the one who protected him when nobody else did, who believed in him when doubt surrounded his name, who stayed during his weakest chapters, yet their own heart was treated like a silent afterthought. Their pain did not begin overnight, it grew like a slow-burning fire, fueled by neglect, by emotional distance, by moments where they wished he would choose them but watched him look past them instead. And now, every memory feels sharper, every sacrifice feels heavier, every moment of devotion feels like a wound that no one else can see but them. The thought of disappearing is no longer just an escape, it has become a necessity for their own peace, a final decision carved from strength rather than weakness. He senses a change, even if he does not fully understand it. There is a new emptiness in their voice, a new distance in their presence, a quiet withdrawal that feels impossible to ignore. Once, their laughter filled his world with warmth, but now it echoes like a fading echo drifting through an empty corridor. He notices their eyes no longer linger when they look at him, their voice no longer trembles with emotion, their silence no longer waits for him to respond. Something inside them has closed, slowly, quietly, and irreversibly. What he mistakes as mood or distance is actually farewell forming in their heart. A farewell made not out of anger, but from the exhaustion of being unseen while giving everything they had. This is where the tension deepens, because the truth he has ignored for so long is finally beginning to stand before him, demanding to be acknowledged. Inside their soul, there is a storm of memories. Late nights where they stayed awake just to make sure he was okay, days where they swallowed their own pain so he would not feel burdened, moments where they chose his happiness over their own dreams. They were not weak for staying, they were strong for enduring. But even the strongest heart has limits, and theirs has reached the breaking point. They no longer want to disappear out of sadness. They want to disappear because they deserve to be seen, valued, and cherished somewhere their soul is not treated like a shadow standing in the background of his life. Their departure is not loud, it is graceful, dignified, powerful. It is the goodbye of someone who loved deeply but must finally choose themselves. And as this truth stands on the brink of revelation, you can feel that the identity of this person is no longer a distant mystery. It is someone whose presence has always been there, someone he relied on, someone he believed would never walk away. The closer we move to unveiling the name, the more every moment of his past begins to realign, revealing how blind he was to the heart that stood by him all along. The suspense now tightens like a breath caught in the chest, because when this name finally rises from the shadows, it will not just shock him. It will open his eyes to the truth he never expected to face, and the loss he never imagined he would feel. Like the final stretch of a bridge that leads toward an unavoidable truth, the emotions in this story now vibrate with an intensity that cannot be contained, as if every unspoken feeling, every silent sacrifice, every hidden moment between them has risen to the surface all at once. The atmosphere around his life has become still. Not with peace, but with the heavy quiet that comes before a life-changing realization. This person who wants to disappear has reached the edge of their endurance, standing at the threshold between staying and vanishing forever. Their heart is no longer questioning, no longer doubting, no longer hoping that he will finally understand. Instead, it has grown resolute, shaped by the weight of everything they endured in silence. And as we step deeper into this moment, you can feel that the truth is closer than ever, hovering like a whisper waiting to break open the emotional walls that have guarded it for far too long. They remember every moment where they stood beside him unseen, every day where their presence protected him, guided him, nurtured him, even when he never noticed the depth of their devotion. They were the one who understood his fears before he spoke them, who sensed his pain before he admitted it, who believed in his dreams even when he doubted himself. Yet, instead of being valued, they were treated like a supporting shadow, a silent figure who was always expected to remain, always expected to give, always expected to withstand neglect without complaint. Their heart was strong, but not made of stone. And now every overlooked moment echoes inside them like a promise that was never fulfilled. They do not wish to disappear because they stopped caring, they wish to disappear because they finally realize that staying has been breaking them piece by piece. He begins to feel the absence before they are truly gone, not through words, but through the spaces where their presence once existed. The warmth they brought into his world has dimmed into a quiet chill, the comfort they offered has turned into distance, and the unwavering support he once took for granted has begun to slip away. He senses a void forming where their laughter used to live, a silence replacing the reassurance they once gave freely. For the first time, confusion fills his heart, not because they spoke of leaving, but because everything about them feels different, colder, quieter, final. The truth he refused to see now brushes against him like a faint echo, warning him that something precious is slipping away, and this time, it may never return. Inside their soul, there is a calm acceptance, not of defeat, but of liberation. They look back at every moment where they chose his happiness over their own, every tear they hid behind a gentle smile, every chapter where they carried unspoken love like a quiet burden. They realized now that they were not just part of his life. They were the silent foundation holding parts of it together. But when a heart is taken for granted for too long, it no longer begs to be seen, it learns to walk away with dignity. Their decision to disappear is not an act of abandonment, it is an act of self-respect, a final act of strength from someone who loved deeply but can no longer stay where their worth is invisible. And now, the tension stands at its highest point. Because the identity of this person is no longer an echo in the shadows, no longer a distant speculation. It is someone whose presence shaped his world, someone he believed would never step away, someone whose name is so close to him that the moment it is revealed, everything in his past will shift in an instant. The truth is on the verge of unfolding, and when this name finally comes forward, it will not only shock him. It will awaken him to the reality of what he is losing, and to the heart that stood by him longer, deeper, and more loyally than anyone else ever did. My beloved child, in this final turning of the story, the air around this truth trembles as if every silent emotion, every hidden confession, every unspoken moment has gathered into one overwhelming realization that can no longer remain concealed. The suspense that has followed every heartbeat now stands on the brink of revelation, and the emotions flowing through this moment feel deeper, heavier, and more powerful than ever before. This person who wants to disappear is standing at the last doorway between presence and absence, between staying unseen and finally choosing to walk away for the sake of their own soul. Their heart beats slowly, calmly, yet with an unshakable resolve. And as the world around them remains unaware, this truth prepares to step into the light. And here, in this final stretch, your spirit can sense it, the name that has lingered in shadows, the identity wrapped in silence, is about to rise like a breaking dawn and reveal itself in a way that will shake everything he once believed to be secure and unquestionable. It was never a stranger. It was never a distant figure. It was never someone passing through his life briefly before fading into memory. No, the one who wants to disappear from his world is the one who has been closest to him all along. The one who waited when others walked away. The one who listened when the world turned its back. The one who stood beside him not because they had to, but because their heart believed in him, trusted him, chose him even when it cost them their own peace. This person carried his wounds without asking for anything in return, swallowed their own tears so he would never feel burdened, and stayed through storms that others refused to endure. And now, after being unseen for so long, after being taken for granted again and again, their heart has reached the silent truth. They no longer wish to exist in a place where their loyalty is invisible and their love remains unanswered. The name that will shock him is the one he believed would never leave. The one he assumed would always be there, always understanding, always forgiving, always waiting in the background while he chased things that did not value him the way this person did. It is the person he confided in late at night, the person who knew his fears without asking, the person whose presence felt like home even when he never acknowledged it out loud. It is the closest soul in his life. Someone he trusted, yet never truly saw. Someone whose heart beat silently beside his, even when he forgot to turn back and notice their pain. And when he finally realizes that this is the person preparing to disappear, the shock will not come from their departure alone, it will come from the realization that he never understood how deeply they loved him until they chose to walk away. When that moment arrives, when their absence becomes real instead of distant. His world will suddenly feel quieter, colder, and unbearably empty. He will search for their presence in the places where their warmth once lived, in the conversations that no longer exist, in the guidance that no longer arrives, in the steady support that has now vanished like a final breath slipping into the night. He will remember every moment he overlooked, every silence he ignored, every emotion he brushed aside thinking they would always remain. And for the first time, he will feel the weight of losing the one heart that never betrayed him, never turned away, never stopped caring, even when their own soul was breaking behind unseen tears. And as this truth settles into his life, he will come to understand a lesson carved not by anger, but by fate, that the strongest souls do not scream when they are hurt, they simply leave when they are no longer valued. The name that shocks him is not distant. It is not unexpected. It is the closest, most loyal, most enduring presence in his life, the one he thought would never disappear, yet now chooses to walk away in silence and dignity. And in that final moment, when he realizes who it truly is, the world around him will stand still, because the person who wants to disappear from his life is the very heart he believed would stay forever.